Good evening. It is Wednesday. This is your Wednesday, Wellness Live. I got it wrong. I nearly said it wrong. Welcome. How are you all doing? How are you on this lovely, lovely Wednesday evening? Welcome to the room. Thank you for everybody that has tuned in. Thank you for everybody that's watching. And you know what? A massive thank you for everybody that has participated over the last few months on these Wednesday wellnesses. They've been absolutely amazing. I see Rachel Doncaster's in the room. Your pie's on the table later. Just thought I'd tell you that. Yep, I think it's a steak and kidney pie. So I just wanted to share that one with you. I'm going to start off with a couple of questions because there are a few questions, and I'm going to do some now and I'm going to do some later on as well. For those of you who are tuning in, let me turn that one down. Tuning in that haven't tuned in before, my name is Kevin Guthrie. I'm a psychotherapist and coach. These sessions are put on between myself and Newark-and-Sherwood District Council. We put them on because we want to give people the best opportunity to manage their own health and well-being as you possibly can. I'm a psychotherapist, so I mainly work with the mind, but actually I'm very holistic in my delivery, so therefore we cover all areas of life, mind and body. Tonight we are going to look at resilience, which we've looked at before, but we're also going to look at relationships. When we do relationships, because I don't want people going, oh no, I haven't got a relationship. When I do relationships, I want to cover all areas of relationships, all areas. So like friendships, mother-daughter relationships, intimate relationships, friendships, all areas of relationships, even relationships that you might have at work. The stuff that I've got in front of me is about relationships in general. All of the information kind of cross-pollinates to all of those different areas. Just 1 minute whilst I grab my fan. So yeah, relationships is all of those areas. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a couple of questions. So one of the questions that I got sent in was, why do I feel that mental health is so poorly received and stigmatized? So a couple of things on that. I feel like I say that a lot. It is still stigmatized. There's still less and less people, or less people than we would like, engaging in it. Yet, I do want to say this, it is less stigmatized now than it ever has been. Do you know what I mean? There is more and more people talking about mental health in a more positive way. We are doing things like this, we are having conversations, we are bringing mental health into the fore and discussing it in the same way that we might discuss having a bad leg. So, although there is still a lot of stigma about it, and you still get people saying, honestly, this blows my mind when I hear this. If I hear people saying, oh yeah, mental health's not for me. I do that and I laugh and I go, oh really? So you don't have mental health? Because people still say that, oh, mental health, it's not my bag. It's not really for me. Let's just clarify that everybody has mental health because we all have a mind and we all have a thinking machine stuck on the top of our shoulders. So therefore we all have mental health. We nearly all go through periods of poor mental health in our lives, nearly all of us, some more often than others, and that's the way it is. But we cannot say that mental health isn't for us because it absolutely is. I kind of admire these people that just say, well, you just got to go on with it, and I just get on with it, and I put my big girl pants on, and I get on with it. But we all have mental health. I mean, that's a choice. It's a choice to ignore it or to get on with it. But I really want people to engage in it and understand themselves and get the most peace and joy out of life as they possibly can. So why was it so stigmatized and less now? In the past, we understood less about the mind. We talked about it less. It was like this unknown entity that happened in here. And people would use words like crazy and nutter. And I remember when I was younger that people would say things like, oh, the men in the van in the white coats will come and fetch you. I used to hear that often, not necessarily at me, but they were words. And actually they were real because back in the day, people would come and pick you up and take you away and you would get sectioned. But they're the kind of conversations that I remember happening when I was much, much younger. But I believe that happened because there was less talk about it and there was less understanding of it. The other question that I want to tackle at this side of the session is: are mental health problems increasing? I thought this was a really interesting question. Uh, if I'm not entirely sure how to answer it because I want to say yes, but I want to say yes because I think over the last year, as we know, it has been particularly difficult for a lot of people. So therefore, I do think mental health issues are increasing, but I hope through things like this and people sharing things like this and people talking about things like this that we can manage it, which is exactly why these sessions are put on, to help us all through this difficult time. Okay, so yeah, I do think they're increasing, unfortunately, but I'm hoping that we can at least try and manage the tidal wave by doing stuff like this and by you beautiful people sharing it, because that's what you're gonna do, isn't it? You're all gonna share. So just a couple of questions to start off with. The first thing I wanted to go into was something that we have done before. 1 minute again, I need to turn this fan. It gets really warm in this room at night. I wanted to look at resilience. So we have definitely looked at resilience before. Whenever I talk about resilience, I always use a image that I'm going to show you in a minute. And the image is of a battery. Why am I doing resilience again? Because it feels like almost a year in to our first lockdown, March 23rd of last year, it feels like resilience is quite low. And although I can see people looking forward and I can see people going, yes, we're on our way out, there still feels like there's a lot of tiredness around, and that's kind of resilience. So I wanted to go over the resilience battery again before I move on to relationships. Okay, so let's see if I can pull up my first frame. So here is the. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I just want to see who's watching. Hi everybody. Hi everybody that has said hello. I'm saying hello right back at you. Also, don't forget that during these sessions, you can ask any questions that you want around well-being and mental health, and if I can answer it, then I can. If it's about the mind, there's more chance that I'll be able to answer it. I have a general understanding of well-being per se. Okay, so let's have a look at resilience. This is my resilience battery right here. So having a full or near full battery allows us more resilience. So there's the battery right in the middle there. You have an input and you have an output. If I go to the next picture, we're going to focus on the output first. So the output, what drains your battery? So I want you to think about things like poor sleep or poor quality of sleep. So poor quality of sleep is not, so we can be in bed for 10 hours, but only actually sleep for 4. Too much unhealthy food or drink. Think caffeine, think alcohol, think high fat, high sugar foods, all in excess. All of those things in excess. I'm not saying for a second that we shouldn't eat any of those things, but it's in excess that it becomes very bad for our system. Little or no exercise. The body needs movement. It needs some sort of movement. It just does. It's like I described this earlier on the lockdown live this morning. If a car's sat outside for too long, it will seize up. And if our body doesn't get the extra movement it needs, and when I say movement, I don't just mean walking around the house, I mean walking outside. If you're watching this and you're fearful of the cold, then put a big coat on, put a big scarf on, put a hat on, put gloves on, but please get outside, because the body needs that movement, and it's good for our minds when it gets that movement. So little or no exercise, unhealthy social media. That's about being triggered by people's posts. If you're being triggered by people's posts, then it's not a healthy input into the mind, because it's like when we read through social media like that and we're triggered, then that is messing with our minds a little bit. Unhealthy company and conversations. So that's about people that take from your table constantly but don't bring back to your table. So there's no two-way exchange on that. If somebody is constantly draining on you but not supporting you at all, then it's an imbalanced relationship, and that can be really difficult. It can be really difficult if it's your partner. It can be really difficult if it's a close friend. If it's a close friend, you can gently step back a little bit. I never I never necessarily fall out with people. I just take a gentle step back. If I feel something's unhealthy, or I feel I'm being drained in any way, or my mental health is being compromised, that's the thing. If your mental health's not being compromised and you're okay with all of this, then carry on. Don't change any of it, because it's okay. But if you're getting tired and you're getting snappy and you feel like your resilience is low and you feel you have no time for yourself, then start to look at some of this stuff here. So that's the output. All of these ideas in front of you are just ideas. These are not they're not a completed list. I want you to complete the list. I want you to look at it and say, what else would you put on that side? So here's a question for you. When we look at output, what else would you put on there? What else would you consider drains your battery that you possibly could change or alter? Because some of these, it could be about time or amount. So it could be that you're drinking too much, so therefore you're going to cut back on drinking. It could be that you're drinking too much caffeine, so you're going to cut back on caffeine. It could be that there's too many high-fat foods, so you're going to cut back on high-fat foods. It's not about cutting them out. That's black and white thinking. It could be that you are going for a walk around the block, but you need a bigger walk. On that one there, on walking, I found about 4 or 5 weeks ago that if I was walking the dogs, it wasn't enough for me. I needed to walk the dogs, who could be slightly annoying, and then I would bring the dogs back, and then I would go for a proper walk on my own, which would take about an hour and a half. I'd put a podcast there, and I'd listen to a podcast, and I'd go for like a good hour. So that's output. Let's have a look at input. Don't forget, you can ask any questions you want. Just feed them into the feed, and I will answer. Input. So what recharges? This is what charges the battery up. Good sleep. How do we get good sleep? For me, good sleep starts first thing in the morning when we wake up. We consider how much caffeine we drink. If you're caffeine sensitive, we consider having naps during the day. They say that having a nap after 2 o'clock is worse than having one before. It's not about not having a nap. What was I going to say then? Good healthy foods, again, more nourishment. There was a really good podcast released on Monday. You can find it on Home Radio's radio station and on my Facebook page, actually. I think I promoted it again today. I did a podcast recording with a woman called Alison Harris, who was really quite lovely and very knowledgeable on nutrition, but very simple in her delivery, in terms of it wasn't complicated, because I do think that we overthink food too much. We know what healthy food is, and we know what unhealthy food is. We don't, it's not rocket science. We know this, so let's do this. Doing things that make you happy, your oxygen. This taps into an exercise that I do with a lot of people. Your oxygen is things that lift you, things that give you a bit of joy. So for me, it might be going out and having a cup of coffee and cake with a friend. We can't do that at the moment, so sometimes we'll walk into town on a Saturday if we've got time, pick up a coffee, and it just hits that mark a little bit. So think about things that really lift you, and then think about, are you doing that? And I know it's difficult at the moment. I know it's difficult because we are in this this lockdown situation. It's not even semi, it is a lockdown situation. So I know it's difficult, but we can't give in to the current climate. We can't give in to the virus that's around us, okay? And the government's restrictions, for good reason. Spending time with people who feed you, not drain you. You know, they say that we become a version of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So look at the top 5 people you spend time with, and you will be a version of those top 5 people. And ask yourself, do you want to be a version of those top 5 people? That's a really interesting question. Healthy social media. How do we get healthy social media? What I do is I unfollow, not defriend. Defriend is very different. I unfollow people that are around me. People that are triggering me in some way. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just getting on with their lives. My triggers are my own, but I choose to unfollow them, so therefore I don't see their posts. And laughter. Consider what makes you laugh. When I think about what makes me laugh, I like Gogglebox. Gogglebox makes me laugh. It makes me chuckle. And if I want to laugh in an evening, it's the one place that I can go to, and it's the one place that I can really laugh. So find your giggle factor. What makes you chuckle? What makes you laugh? Somebody's put lack of me time. It's such a classic that, it's such a lot of people really struggle with lack of me time. And again, particularly at the moment, because as everybody has struggled and the struggles have increased over the last year, it feels like the people that have had more resilience have had it drained and drained and drained. We've allowed that to happen, I should say. So maybe it's time to take some of that me time back. Get out for a walk. Listen to. I've forgotten what I was going to say then. I can't remember what I was going to listen to. That's what happens when you're tired and you're trying to read a feed and speak at the same time. Let's just put great podcasts. So listen to podcasts. I love listening to podcasts now. One of my favourites to listen to, aside from my own, I don't listen to my own, is Brené Brown. I love listening to Brené Brown. She's a really good shout. If you haven't tapped into Brené Brown, please watch some of Brené Brown's stuff. She is incredible. Love that woman. I want to be Brené Brown. So there we go. Let's have a look at it in its entirety again. Input, output. I want you to consider. So I asked you a question earlier. Nobody's answered my question. I think one person's asked my question. So the question was, what would you change on your output? So when you answer this on the feed, put output, change, and then tell me what it is. Or what would you change on the input? Put input, change, and then tell me what it is. Because I'd really like to know for you what the changes would be. Think about input and output. This is your resilience battery. When we think about sleep, just a really quick one on that. When we think about sleep, when I think we assume sometimes that if we've been in bed all night, that actually we've had a good night's sleep, and that's not the case. Honestly, we can be in bed for 10 hours and have such a poor night's sleep. So when we think about sleep, it's quality sleep that we're looking for. Let's just put listening to Sadhguru. Sadhguru is a bit of a mystic. He's amazing. He's got an app. Does loads and loads of stuff on social media. Just a really interesting, dry-witted. He's a little bit like a modern day Buddha, but I do love Sadhguru. You have to be in the mood for him because sometimes he can be very, very deep. So you have to be in the mood for that. Okay, right. Let's move this on. Not going back to that one. Going back to that one. Back on the screen. Right. We're going to look at relationships. Like I said before, when I do relationships, I'm not talking about. I'm not just talking about personal or intimate relationships. I'm talking about all levels of relationships. And I'm doing this because they are so powerful. And as children, as babies, relationships are one of the first things that we learn. And it's one of the first things that we form. Like from day one, when we are babies, we form that attachment and that relationship with our primary carer. Whoever it is that's taking care of us, that's who we form the attachment with. So, just read this. Bed sleep routines, more walks, being more, that's an interesting word, being more selfish with who I talk to and what is good for me, more healthy social media. I really want to challenge that. I have to challenge that word selfish. Is it really selfish that we should look after ourselves? Is that really selfish? Because we want to be better, we want to be healthier, we want to be more resilient. So remember the oxygen analogy when you're on an aeroplane and they say if the oxygen mask falls, always put your own oxygen mask on first before you pass it to somebody else. Why do they say that? They say that because if we don't take our own oxygen, then we can't necessarily be there for other people. Okay? So I'll ask you again, is that really selfish? That we have to take care of ourselves first before we can be there and resilient enough to take care of other people? Because for me, that's not selfish. Right. Okay, I'll let you away with that one, Dan. Right. Good one to start off with. Keep expectations realistic. Expectations come from us. If I expect that when I finish this, there will be a 3-course meal sat on the table in the kitchen waiting for me, then that's my expectation. Now, I kind of know that if that's my expectation this evening, then I'm going to be surely disappointed. There will be a meal on the table, a very delicious meal, but there won't be a 3-course meal sat on the table. So we have to be really careful with expectations because they're ours. We set the expectations that we place onto other people. But we have to be aware that we are setting those expectations. So I love that one to start with. Consider what expectations you are putting onto friendships and relationships, expectations that you are putting onto sons or daughters or mums or dads. And then ask yourself, whose expectation is that? And does the expectation come from the world around us in terms of social conditioning and social expectations? Because there's a lot of social expectations around. And ask yourself that, where does that expectation come from? Okay? Sure sport, going to sleep a bit earlier in the evening, more time outdoors, love that. Trying to watch more warm and fluffy Netflix and less documentaries about serial killers. Yeah, I'm laughing, but it's so serious. We tend to get drawn into these Netflix dramas that are about serial killers and all sorts of. It excites us, but it's also feeding our anxiety. Okay, so expectations, keep the expectations real, and I want you to own your own expectations because that part is absolutely vital. No one can be everything we might want them to be. Healthy relationships mean accepting people as they are and not trying to change them. You know, maybe when two people meet, or maybe when friends become friends, there can be a little bit of change, but ultimately, you enter into an unspoken agreement that you're there with that person because you want to be there with them. Don't then enter into it and then place your expectations, expect that they would change because that's not really fair. Okay, talk with each other. This can't be said enough. When I work with people, with couples in here, then communication is always absolutely key. When I work with families, communication is absolutely key. I was sat on a session the other day online with 2 people. It was can I say this? Am I giving too much away? It doesn't matter. It was 2 people. It was a young person and an older person, and they had this conversation. And I stopped them. Can I just say that conversation that took place then was gold. And I really want you to do more of that because that was beautiful. That was just you two communicating and talking through a situation that happened a few days earlier. That is beautiful, and that's how you will begin to understand each other and work through what it is that's happening in the house. So communication is absolutely essential to healthy relationships. Remember, relationships are all level of relationships, whether it be with your parents, with your brothers and sisters, with friends, with work colleagues, any kind of relationships. All of those are relationships. We have hundreds of relationships in our world, not just personal, intimate. Take the time to really be there. Take the time to really ask them what's happened in their day. Are you aware that something was happening in their day? And then ask them how it was. How was that for you? I'm aware that this happened today and you were going into that meeting. How was it? When we do that, we are really there for them. We are acutely there. Genuinely listen. Do not interrupt or plan what you're going to say next. Try to fully understand their perspective. When we hear somebody, let them talk. Just let them go, but be there, make good eye contact, good body posture. So bad body posture is legs crossed, just cross my legs. And you see how my body changes. It kind of it tilts to one side, and of course that's bad body posture. So if you think you're listening to somebody and you're doing this, you're blocking yourself somehow. If you want to listen to somebody, then be there. Let's just put no Marcella then. Marcella, oh my goodness, it's like American Horror. Goodness me. So good body language. Talk to them. If we're talking on screen, because there's a lot of on-screen talking at the minute, make sure you've got good lighting and make sure you're talking right into the screen. Talk to them. We can still connect through screens. We can still do that. I know that we would prefer to be face-to-face. I know that, but let's not dismiss that we can still connect via this medium. Ask questions. Show that you're interested. Ask about their experiences, their feelings, their opinions, and their interests. The set of cards across there, there's a few set of cards across there that are for couples, and what the cards do is they encourage questioning. So they're just like random cards, with about 100 cards with 100 different questions on, and they're really cute sometimes, just to slip in your pocket and ask questions. And a lot of people would say that it feels a little bit contrived, that we have to have a prompt. Where did it become law that we should have a stack of questions in our head? Having a little card or a prompt in your pocket is not a bad thing. And it encourages conversation, it encourages exploration, and it encourages development of a relationship. And again, whether that be friendship or intimate and personal or mother and son, doesn't matter. It's developing that relationship. Okay? Share information. Studies show that sharing information helps relationships begin. Let people know who you are, but don't overwhelm with too much personal information too soon. I also think there's a steady unfolding of personal information, and we kind of have to feel it. I think sometimes we feel it through what we hear from them. So are they letting go of personal stuff? And if they let go, we feel less vulnerable. So therefore, we let go of some of our personal stuff. But feel it. Feel your way through those early days of relationships. Be flexible. It's natural to feel uneasy about changes. Healthy relationships allow for change and growth. So what they're saying there is it's okay. It's okay for things to change, and it's okay to feel a little bit upskittled when, I don't know, they say, I'm going away for a weekend, or this is not happening, or that is happening. It's okay to feel a little bit upskittled, but sit with it and own it. Don't attack them for the changes that have happened. Just sit with a little bit. It's okay. Changes are absolutely fine. Okay? Need a drink. My throat's going dry. Just laughing at something in the feed. Have you ever been sat having your hair cut and the barber or the hairdresser goes, "Can you sit up, please?" Apparently, this is the thing. Apparently, if you slouch, it makes a difference to your head, and they find it difficult to cut your hair. Who knew? I didn't know that, but it does. This is what I can do that with body language. If we do that with body language, there's something in it. There is something in it, and particularly if we not so. I want to say with crossing your legs. My legs are crossed again now. Sometimes with crossing your legs, it's very comfortable, and if I'm sat in that chair behind me and then Clive's sat opposite me, I will quite often cross my legs. When I'm sat on screen, I never cross my legs because it's not comfortable. But this definitely is. And if I'm sat with a client and then I get this unconscious urge to do this, then I have to go, whoa, what's going off there? What's just been triggered? What's happening in my head that I feel the need to protect myself? I don't know, it could be that they've just said something like, actually, I could do with a word with you. And then I kind of go, okay, what do you need to say? And that's me just protecting myself, which is fairly obvious. So yeah, body posture is really, really important. But if we're having conversations with people, and it's a semi-serious conversation, then try and keep your body posture open. Try and let that energy to and fro between the two of you. Okay? Pardon me. Don't forget you can ask questions. I think communication has been the difference between relationships surviving through lockdown. I think relationships in general have been, as a lot of things have been challenged through lockdown, relationships have been, many different types of relationships have been challenged. And you're quite right, communication is absolutely key to that, because our lives have been shifted upside down. You know, you end up, you might have had a model in your house where uh, one partner is at home with the kids and looking after the kids, and the other partner is out and working all the time and away for 3 or 4 nights a week, and the relationship has really worked. And then all of a sudden, the partner that was away is in the house, and the kids are in the house. Oh my goodness, what a shift that is! Let me tell you, if you survived that, then that is amazing. That is absolutely incredible. Because some people haven't, because their relationship worked on that model of that person being out the house for 3 or 4 nights and having that space and freedom. And then all of a sudden we couldn't do that. We couldn't do it. It wasn't even a question. We just couldn't do that. So if your relationship has survived, then I'd say that was pretty amazing. Denise Ross has put output, worry and stress. Okay, we did we look at, I can't remember where we looked at worry and stress, but we definitely looked at worry and stress. So remember, with worry and stress, they are both really, sorry, this is going to sound really harsh, they are both self-inflicted. With worry, I always say, if you're worrying about something that's happening in a week's time, 4 weeks time, or 6 months time, then why are you worrying about that? Because we can't necessarily change it, and we're just overthinking a situation that really hasn't happened yet. Yeah, if it's worry and stress, then we are stuck in our heads because we're overthinking it. And what I'd say to that is, try and do more stuff that you really, really enjoy, and pull yourself out of your head and back into your heart a little bit, and it reduces the worry. We talked about HeartMath on another one, but they are self-inflicted, and I'm sorry if that sounds harsh. I just had a work meeting based on total communication. It's such a relief, but both parties need to be honest and open. I absolutely agree. So that was be flexible. Take care of yourself too. Healthy relationships are mutual, with room for both people's needs. I did I talk about podcasts a lot. I recorded another podcast the other day with 2 people who are kind of relationship mentors. Two really interesting people, and we were talking about relationships because I knew it'd be an interesting podcast. And I was asking them what makes healthy relationships, and what we all agreed, the 3 of us agreed, was that actually individual growth is so powerful for relationships. Because what happens is, let me see if I can quickly do this for you. This is how in at therapy school, this is how we learned about relationships. So at therapy school, look at this high-tech stuff here. At therapy school, we have 2 relationships, 1 and 2, and then we have this part here. Now, 2 individuals, 1 and 2, and then this part here, we have the relationship. So we're told that when we're working with a couple, that we're always working on this part. So if you can imagine, which I'd known I was going to do this, I'd have done you a really lovely graphic. You can imagine if this person here grows, and this person here grows massively, this one, then what happens to that one in the middle, that relationship in the middle? It just gets stronger and stronger. Individual personal growth is not a threat to the relationship, it is an enhancement to the relationship. And if both parties are growing, then it's an enhancement. So looking after yourself is really, really important. It's so, so important. But we might also, again, tap into that, is this selfish genre. Just checking the time. Good grief. Good grief. 35 minutes. Where did that go to? I talk a lot. Enough. Take care of yourself too. Be dependable. If you make plans with somebody, follow through. If you take on a responsibility, complete it. Healthy relationships are trustworthy. So, where am I at with this one? I want to say be dependable, don't be flaky, whilst considering that sometimes stuff happens. You know, sometimes life gets in the way, sometimes we're not feeling well, sometimes the car breaks down, sometimes the finances aren't there. So There's a difference between being just a little bit flaky and I can't be bothered, to letting somebody down for a very genuine reason. So if you can, and then again, this is all levels of relationships, whether having a coffee with a friend, or a mum or a dad or a brother or a sister, or an intimate, then try and be as dependable as possible, because that's where trust is built, by consistency and being able to trust the other person. Fight fair. Most relationships have some conflict. All relationships have conflict. I get really worried when people sit in front of me and say, we never argue. We never argue at all. And I go, ooh, what's going off there? There is going to be conflict. There's conflict in the world. There's conflict in our heads. There's going to be conflict in a relationship. Let's put that out there straight away. It's going to happen. It's how we then manage the conflict that is the important part. So fight fair. Most relationships have some conflict. It only means you disagree about something. It does not mean that you don't like each other. When we look at this, again, going back to my really posh graphic, we have two people there, those two circles, and what happens is both of those circles will have had very, very different backgrounds and upbringing and experiences. No right, no wrong, just very, very different. And then what happens is we take those difference, we take those difference, and then we take it into the middle. And all of that difference can become conflict in the middle. We don't do it that way. That's not the way you cut an onion. Does it matter how you cut an onion? That's not the way you stack the dishwasher. You would not believe how many conversations have been had in this room about dishwashers. Dishwashers. And you look at it and go, come on, are we still discussing dishwashers? Are we still doing that? Why are we discussing, I can't say it, discussing dishwashers? Quite often it's about something different. It's just about something different. But yeah, conflict is going to happen. Difference is going to happen. Maybe we get to a point where we respect somebody's difference. Because there's a difference between respecting somebody's difference and disrespecting somebody's difference. Okay? Right. Cool down before talking. I love this one. So I quite often talk about our chimp mode, and quite often if we are triggered in some way, then we end up in a chimp mode. If we're in chimp mode, you end up two people like this, and they're very tetchy. Nothing good is ever going to come from that. So create a pause button together. Agree on this. You have to agree. But I would say agree on the pause button before you go into conflict. So this is one of those things that you would agree on. Sorry, I'm just sharing this again. This is one of these things that you would agree on before conflict happens, okay? So agree to create a pause button. And then when you go to this point here where you've got two people in conflict, then you go, can we press pause? And then you both pull away, you both go and do your own stuff, you both come back down into like human mode, and then you can have a rational conversation. But if you're both in chimp mode, please, please, please don't try and have this conversation. Please don't do that, because no good is ever going to come from that. You're just going to get two people in conflict. And whilst we're in conflict, we have less access to the rational mind, so therefore more irrational comments and behaviors will happen. So if you're in conflict, don't do that, okay? So Mickey Owen is in the feed, and Mickey was the guy that I mentioned that I did the podcast with the other day, and he put, it's never really about the dishwasher. It definitely isn't. The dishwasher is just about it's that's triggering. There's a really good video on YouTube somewhere, and it's called "It's Not About the Nail," and it literally is a woman with a nail in her forehead, and she keeps saying to the guy, because the guy's going, you've got and she's going, if you mention that nail again, it's just a really, really funny situation. Absolutely, Mickey. I agree. Same team. Use I statements. Share how you feel. What you want without assigning blame or motives. E.g., when you don't call me, I start to feel like you don't care about me, versus you never call me when you're away. I guess I'm the only one who cares about this relationship. don't attribute blame. Don't, and then again, this is all levels of relationships. This is just not intimate ones. Don't, we have, it's really important that we own our own feelings. I feel when you is a really great statement. Or when you do, I feel is a really nice statement. Because what you're doing by doing that is you're owning the situation. And again, I know I keep reminding you, this can be a brother, a sister, a mum, a dad, an intimate other. It could be whoever, absolutely ever. It doesn't matter who it is. But own your statements. So when you do that, I feel like, we don't say, when you do that, you make me feel like. Because nobody, this might blow your minds a little bit, nobody has the power to make you feel anything. We talked about this the other week. Remember, I gave the analogy on somebody slapping you across the face and then walking away. Nobody has the power to make you feel anything. You have the power, or lack of power, to allow yourself to feel things. So own your feelings. That's not to say that you weren't triggered by something that happened and it's a point of conversation, but have that conversation. Yeah, have the conversation with them, but have it but without attributing blame, because when we go to blame somebody and they hear blame, then barriers come up and we can't get in. The communication channels have then been blocked. And it's much harder for us then to have, again, a really rational conversation. Okay? Keep the language clear and specific. Try to factually describe behavior that you are upset with. Avoid criticism and judgment. Attack the problem and not the person. So when you said, I was triggered. So when we're doing that, we are highlighting what it was that was said that actually triggered us. So we're not blaming them for saying what they said, but we're making a point of it. And then we discuss, where do we go with this in the future? Is it something that you could avoid saying because I was triggered, or is it my trigger to then repair? I would go with the latter. I'd want you to repair the trigger or repair the wound. A trigger is just a wound. Remember, we did work on that as well. Focus on the current issue. The conversation is likely to get bogged down if you... Oh, I love this one. Focus on the current issue. The conversation is likely to get bogged down if you pile on everything that bothers you. Avoid using always and never language and address one issue at a time. Have you got into that space for somebody where you go, and when you did this, and then you did that, and then you did that 5 years ago, and then you said that 4 years ago. Don't do that. Don't do that. Somebody in his feed is going to go ballistic in a minute because of what I'm about to do. But I'm doing it anyway. So I quite like this idea. If you want to discuss something, let's use the dishwasher as an example. And we know it's not about the dishwasher, but if you want to discuss the dishwasher, then what I would do, and I'm really aware that this might not be very popular, is I would write it on a post-it note, because I would want to keep the conversation focused. You don't have to write it on a bright pink post-it note, but you might want to say on several occasions, we were talking about the dishwasher. Can we bring it back to there? Because what happens is, when we pile on other stuff, there could be some avoidance happening from the other person, because they feel attacked because you brought something to them. Can we talk about the dishwasher? Yeah, we can talk about the dishwasher. We can talk about your dirty pants on the floor. That's not fair, because we're using that then as weapons, and we're like bouncing back and forward. And actually, if I want to talk about the dishwasher, then that's me being brave enough to step forward and talk about the dishwasher. If you wanted to talk about the dirty pants on the floor, then maybe you should have had that conversation at the time that it was bothering you. But don't wade in on my space and on my little conflict here. Yeah. So keep it focused and be very aware. And this can happen at work as well, in work type relationships. You see it. The conversation starts in, then it goes like this, and then it goes like this, and then it's all over here, and the original subject's over here. You're like, how did we get there when we were here? Because you allowed it to happen. So I'm more acutely aware of that now, and I try to. I might not put it on the post-it note. I might not put it on the post-it note. But you get the idea. Keep it focused, because if not, then my original conversation around the dishwasher then gets dismissed. So we've had this whole conflict, and yet nothing's happened. Nothing has happened whatsoever. So therefore, I'm not satisfied and they're not satisfied. So we've just ended up both separating in a very, very disgruntled way. So try to keep it focused. Be very aware that people will wade in with different things. It's just going to happen. Right, 46. I have another couple of questions to tackle before we leave. Focus on the current issue. Done that one. Take responsibility for mistakes. Really, really hard. This. A lot of people find it really hard to own what it is that they might have done. I struggle with the word mistakes a little bit, or things that they might not have wanted to do is what I want to say, which feels like a stronger piece of language. Just, if you can, own it. People struggle to own things like that because they, I don't know, potentially unconsciously see it as a weakness, therefore see themselves as vulnerable. So really struggle to be able to step forward and say, yeah, that did happen and I did do that. Without then saying, but it's because then that just dismisses the fact that you have just admitted that you did that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I dropped the iPad on the floor and broke it. And it's a really expensive iPad. I didn't. But you can imagine how fearful that might be because it's really expensive and think, oh my goodness, what am I going to do about that? And then I'm just going to pretend it fell off the cabinet on its own, or it fell off its stand on its own. Or I could step forward and go, actually, yeah, I'm really sorry. It just slipped out of my hands, which is far more honest. It almost feels like with that one, this is my fear and my trigger, it almost takes me back to childhood where I might have broken something, then I kind of went, oh God, what are we going to do? Why? I don't know what to do. So really, really powerful that. So I want to pick up on another question that somebody sent in earlier. And the question was tips for coping with waiting lists for medical procedures. So we're in a situation at the minute where people that are waiting for medical procedures, and there may have been a long waiting list for the medical procedure in the first place, and we are in a situation like now where those waiting lists might have doubled and even tripled in some cases. And it's really hard, particularly when these medical procedures can be life-changing and we have people waiting for these. And the second part of the question was how to be more resilient. For me, when I looked at this, there was two things that came up. And the first thing was we don't focus on the medical procedure not happening. So this is the medical procedure here. It's not happening, and it's not happening anytime soon. So what I do is I take it and I fold it up. I fold it up again, and then I pop it in an envelope. This is going to sound really weird, but it does work. Pop it in an envelope, and I pop it on a shelf that says later. We can either do that and make a choice, and again, I apologize if this sounds harsh. We can either do that, make a choice, and pop it on an envelope and pop it on a shelf, or we can allow it to circulate in our minds. It's not happening. This is not happening right now. Really, really sadly, it's not happening right now. So we shelve it for the time being. And then what we do with the resilience is we go right back to this. And we look at that and we study it, we study this, and then we work out how we can do this differently, how we can look at input, how we can look at output, and what changes we can make on those two areas there to increase our resilience in the middle. Okay? Then all of a sudden the waiting lists or the annoyance that we feel from the lack of the procedure being done just takes a little bit of a back seat. Choices. It feels so harsh as I'm saying this, and I really apologize for the person that's listening, but this is a choice to allow it to circulate in here around and around and around, or we put it in an envelope and we put it on the shelf and we leave it there for a while. But try this little exercise with anything. Write on it what it is that you're wanting to shelve, and then fold it up and we do this because that's a little action, and then we put it in an envelope, and then we write later on the envelope, and then we put it on the shelf, and then we leave it there. That's a choice right there. And then we look at the resilience, and we look at the resilience battery, and we start working on that. If you think you've worked on the resilience battery and it's not worked, or it's worked a little bit, then go back to it and work on it again and go for the new ones. Look for the tiny little things that might give you a little bit more resilience, but go back to it. If you think you are deep breathing and it's not quite working or not hitting the mark, then deep breathe a little bit deeper. Go deeper with it, go longer. Everybody at the minute is struggling with everything that's happening in the world. So all of the practices that I talk about constantly, we have to do that a little bit more of. We're just having to do more to survive the current climate. Okay? I really hope that helps, and I am really aware that it might have sounded a little bit harsh, but I want peace. I want you to be in peace and not live for the next however long it takes with that whirring around in your mind. Okay? Let's just spend the last 2 or 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes on relationships. So it says, recognize problems that are not easily solved. Not all differences or difficulties can be resolved. You are different people, and your values, beliefs, habits, and personality may not always be in alignment. Communication goes a long way to helping you understand each other and address concerns. But some things are deeply rooted and may not change significantly. It is important to figure out for yourself what you can accept, or when a relationship is no longer healthy for you. The really important word in there for me was values. You know, we did values a few weeks ago. For me, when we look at values in relationships, if our values don't align, depending on what the values are, sometimes the relationship can't continue. Some values, if there's a difference there, then it's only a slight difference. They can navigate that and they can manage. But for some, it's just really hard. So, but be aware that you have to make your own choices. You have to make your own choices over what you feel you can accept, and what you feel you can't accept. What feels okay for you and what not, and what doesn't feel okay for you. And it's okay for you not to feel okay with it. Okay? Be affirming. According to relationship researcher John Gottman, happy couples have a ratio of 5 positive interactions or feelings for every 1 negative interaction or feeling. Express warmth and affection. Oh, those figures might be kind of triggering a few people. 5 positive interactions or feelings for every 1 negative. Positive interactions are little touches, little strokes, words of affirmation, little gift, not gifts, little what do they call them? Like when people do stuff with you, like leaving your pajamas on the radiator or making a cup of tea, stuff like that. Little things like that can be really positive and affirming. Keep your life balanced. Other people make our lives satisfying, but they cannot meet every need. Find what interests you and become involved. Healthy relationships have room for outside activities. Sometimes when we go into relationships, we almost fall into each other's pockets and then feel like we can never leave each other's pockets. There is life outside relationships if that's what you choose. If you choose to live inside each other's pockets, that's fine. And you know what? If it's healthy, then it's fine again. It's absolutely fine. There is, you know, when we think about relationships, and again, whether this is friendships or intimate or family, there is no right or wrong way of doing relationships. The relationships that you develop with people are your relationships. Develop them in a way that you feel really comfortable with that, and be okay with that. It doesn't matter what the world says about relationships. 20 years ago, friends with benefits might have been really frowned upon, but it's a thing now. People have friends with benefits, and it's okay. And if that's your thing, then it's okay. It's absolutely fine. It's a process. It might look like everybody on campus is confident and connected, but on campus, this is clearly American, connected, but most people share concerns about fitting in and getting along with others. It takes time to meet people and to get to know them. Healthy relationships can be learned, practiced, and keep getting better. Yeah, give them time. Sometimes we go into there's a period in the beginning of a relationship called limerence, Limerence is when hormones are released and two people fall for each other. Limerence is almost like it kind of forces people into bed together to procreate, because that's what we're about, because we're part animal. And sometimes when the limerence dies off a little bit, people are kind of left thinking, "Ooh, what's left? What's left?" Let it develop, because sometimes after the passionate, the lustful, the limerence stage has gone, you can end up with this deep rooted contentment and trust in the relationship. Then that can develop. Okay. In the beginning of a friendship, it can be very exciting, but the longer a friendship goes on, the more trust can build. So let them develop slowly, and don't always rely on them being as they were in the beginning. Okay, because that's very unlikely that that's going to happen. And the last one is be yourself. It's much easier and more fun to be authentic than to pretend to be something or someone else. Healthy relationships are made of real people. What a beautiful place to finish. I wholeheartedly agree with that one. If we are not authentic in relationships, then the relationship is not authentic. Going back to this little circle here, the two for people that are watching, the two circles are two people. The middle part is relationship. If there is lack of authenticity in the two circles, then there's a lack of authenticity in the center part. And if there's a lack of authenticity being a lack of realness, then there's a lack of realness in your relationship. So please, 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 please try and be real. And that's why in the podcast that was recorded the other day, we were talking about people doing their own journey and their own self-reflection and their own emotional growth, because that brings together this really powerful relationship. It's just so, so powerful. I do wish I could see a clock a little bit clearer. Okay. Relationships. All types of relationships right there, all ready for you to listen to. We have three shows left next week, and then two more, I believe. Yeah, I'm sure it's three. Anyway, so there's three left. On the last couple of weeks, maybe the second to last week, I definitely want to look at coming out of a pandemic and people kind of struggling with readjusting to the world around them. I do want to look at that and look at some specific techniques. And also over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I want to highlight some of the amazing work that we've done since October. Okay, so we're going to look at that over the next couple of weeks as well. Thank you, as always, for your amazing interaction. Do you mean no? Thank you for your amazing interaction, and thank you for your comments, because they are what helps this little show take place. Don't forget, I'll be back tomorrow morning. I won't be live between now and 8:15 tomorrow morning. I have to have done a recording and edited it. Not quite sure how that's going to happen at the moment. Maybe I'll do it right now. What's tomorrow morning? Oh, tomorrow morning is mindfulness. So we're doing 5 pillars of well-being. Tomorrow is about mindfulness and creating some sort of stillness, and what mindfulness is, because again, it scares people a little bit. So that's tomorrow morning at 8:15 so far. Okay, we'll see if that one happens. And then I will be back at 7 o'clock next week with another Wellness Wednesday. Thank you for your communication. Thank you for your comments. Love and peace to everybody. Take care. Have a lovely evening. Be kind to yourself and be kind to everybody around you.